Well, hello there and welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on this classic wooden motor cruiser here in Victoria, British Columbia, along with the loving memory of my pup, Geordie. All the while fixing it up, and pretty serious work these days. Hoping to go for some pretty extended cruising eventually, and if that's the sort of thing you might find interesting, please consider sticking around and subscribing. We'd love to have you. So, wow. Well, and what an amazing week it's been. I am just so humbled by the incredible efforts you've all made to support me through the GoFundMe campaign to help me out with the engine. And spoiler alert, the engine is ordered. It'll be here in early January. More on that in a little bit. Wow. So the wheelhouse is gutted in preparation for getting some pretty significant work done in the bilge here. The first thing, well, as soon as I get the last few things out of here after I find some help, is to completely rebuild the sole. The existing sole, which is the floor of the wheelhouse, is in really bad shape and sort of inappropriately laid out for the new layout. So this will all come up. A really good time when this is all up. I'll have completely open access to the bilge and I'll be able to sort out all the junk that's going on down there that I can do while I'm still floating. More on that in a little bit too, but there's a fair amount of work I can do while I'm still floating here, while I'm waiting for the engine. And yeah, this is a big step, a really big step.
And yes, so grateful to all of you. This week I was able to actually make the purchase on the new Beta Marine 60, and it's just the perfect engine, and I'm so excited. So let's look over how I've got it configured. I coupled it with a PRM 280 marine transmission, which is a pretty stout unit, more than I'd really need for this engine, but I just like the idea of a little more stoutness for the large propeller that the boat has. It's a really nice transmission because it's set up in such a way that it can put full power in either forward or reverse. It doesn't care which direction you're going, so if you're running a reverse prop, you simply run it in reverse as forward. It's the way it's designed. It's also neat, it has a PTO output on it in case I ever have some huge hydraulic application. Fun. One of the most significant options that makes this engine so appealing is that it's available with a shallow sump. Now, of course, that'll mean more frequent oil changes, but it also means substantially less, almost no modifications to the framing in the boat. There are three alternator options: the standard 70 amp alternator on a standard V-belt, and then up to a 120 on a poly V as shown here, and then there's a 175 amp unit also on a poly V, of course. I went with the 120 amp unit on poly V. I really like poly V belts, serpentine style belts, for their longevity and robustness, and 120 amps should be plenty to keep me looked after as well, because I intend to have quite a bit of solar as well. As you all know, the engine sits very low in the boat, so I've also opted for the raised gooseneck exhaust elbow, which gets the critical water injection point up a foot above the water level. I was sort of surprised it's an option, but I went for the optional calorifier feed and return. For those of you not in the UK, that's simply hot water feeds into the cooling system to allow you to extract heat from the engine to either heat hot water or heat airspace. One of the most significant options, at least for me, is that Beta Marine have a program where you can work with them to design custom feet. In other words, the engine mounts to the engine beds. So I'll do a little drawing and they'll do up a 3D model of it and send it back to me for confirmation, and then fabricate custom Beta Marine supplied, painted beautiful bright red engine mounts to go right into the engine beds wherever they are. And finally, a spares kit, just to give you that factory fresh maintenance schedule, good times feeling. Pretty excited. So there you go, the fully configured package. I'm just so pleased. So it's ordered and getting ready for manufacturing, and it will be shipped to Canada, and I'll have it sometime early in the new year. Whoa, this is so great. Thank you all again.
So you know that both Perkins engines are out of the boat. One of them just taken out a little while ago and one of them just taken out a couple of days ago. They're both sitting up in the back of my truck waiting to be picked up. The old engine has been sold. It's going to Ontario. Super happy about that. And the newer, the one with the balance shaft engine, is still available. It's on Craigslist and I hope it can move on in the next little while. Mainly because I have no storage. Living on a boat in a marina, I have very, very limited storage. It's basically aboard the boat or in my truck. You can see I have a bunch of junk, basically all the gear that the wood platforms that use to move the engine in and out of the boat stored on the dock. Well, that's got to go tomorrow. I can't be leaving stuff there like that. I've got to take that all apart again, store the wood probably up on the roof. Anyway, that is the one downside of refitting a boat while living aboard: storage. Certainly everything that was in here, all the temporary settee that was here, that was, was just great, but I had to be all broken up and I have nowhere to put it. So it's just a big pile of stuff up on the roof right now until I can get the truck cleared up so I can go to the dump. Anyway, yeah, lots to get into. Okay, let's just jump back and recap on the week a little bit. Okay then, so let's carry on with getting the most recent engine back up and out and up to my truck, and start the process of cleaning out the wheelhouse completely so I can rebuild the sole. Anyway, you know all the steps that's going on in the next little while. Pouring rain today, good day to get this back up and out. Maybe not out, but up and ready to get out. Well, there we go. I didn't think you needed a absolute full play-by-play of removing the engine yet again. You've seen me do this so many times now. So I've promised on and off a full review of my feelings about electric drive. In other words, electric motor for the boat. And I've given it an awful lot of thought. So let me review with you just a little bit about how I feel about it.
Some of you will remember way back in episode 81, I did a brief little foray into my logic about repowering. Let's recap on some of that to get us started. I gave a brief explanation of hull speed and carried on to look at some of the power requirements for the boat. Incidentally, at that time I determined that a Beta Marine 60 was ideal, however, far too expensive. And for the sake of new viewers, I'll reuse what I was thinking at that time about electric drive to get us started.
First off, you need your motor, which drives the propeller, which provides the thrust. And then you need a battery pack, which stores the energy to drive the motor. And then possibly you'd recharge the battery pack with a solar array. And you need two more components. That would be a solar charge controller and a motor controller, which directs the power from one to the other. Let's add some numbers here. That 35 horsepower, which of course is the minimum power, is 26 kilowatts. Let's put a whopping big battery pack in at 500 amp hours at 48 volts, giving us 24 kilowatt hours. And that power plugged into the motor would give us just about 1 hour of propulsion time. Not looking too good. Well, let's look at the charge side of this. Let's say we had a huge solar array of 1,000 watts, which might give us about 4 kilowatts per day. Well, if we plug that into the battery, look at the 24 kilowatt hours required to recharge the battery, that means it would take 6 days to charge the batteries, meaning you'd get 6 days to charge up for 1 hour of propulsion. That's not going to work. Now, there are lots of people putting electric drive in sailboats these days, including some well-known YouTubers, and in fact, power to them, it works perfectly for an auxiliary engine. But for a motor cruiser that needs to cruise continuously without being able to recharge at the dock or something, we're just not there yet. Or are we? Let's try something else. Let's take the same motor at 26 kilowatts, a more modest battery pack at 300 amp hours, and a more modest solar array at 500 watts. Oh, and a genset at, say, 20 kilowatts. Well, that means we could run the electric motor almost continuously, top up the batteries as required, and have a completely electric boat. It doesn't get us off diesel. It's not a complete solution, but it still means you could slip out of moorages silently, and you're halfway to a full electric solution when the time comes.
What I've essentially described here is diesel electric, much the way a railway engine works, where the diesel engine itself has no direct connection to the propeller. Now lately the buzzword has been hybrid, where the diesel engine and the electric engine are both simultaneously connected to the propeller shaft. Let's look at that. So here we see a traditional diesel engine with an electric motor attached downstream of the transmission on the propeller shaft, connected by an electric clutch. In this configuration, the diesel engine can propel the boat straight through that electric clutch with the electric motor not engaged. Or the diesel engine can be turned off and propulsion can come through the electric motor through that electric clutch. And in some configurations, you can disconnect the propeller altogether, use the diesel engine to drive the electric motor as a generator, effectively having a genset. I would call this a series hybrid drive. In other words, you can either drive off the diesel or off the electric, but not both. And now, in my opinion, this is the worst of both worlds. You need a diesel engine that's of a size capable to drive the boat at the speed you want to go, and you need an electric motor at the size that you're going to consider moving it as a compromise, which certainly isn't going to be the full power of the diesel. So there's another way to go, what I would consider parallel hybrid diesel. In this configuration, in addition to the modes I've just described, you could have a mode where both the diesel and the electric are providing power at the same time. This is interesting because you could have a slightly smaller diesel engine so that it's sized for general cruising, but when you need that extra oomph to get through that extra bit of current or something, you can add the extra power of the electric. Incidentally, Beta Marine does offer diesel-electric hybrid configurations, all put together quite nicely. For now, at least, they're Series hybrid, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of seeing an installation here in Victoria sometime in the new year, which I'll be sure to show you.
Now, I love the idea of electric drive. I've been dreaming and designing electric cars and electric boats for decades, waiting for the moment, waiting for the time that it would finally be possible. But for me, for this boat and boats like it, I just don't think it's practical. You have to think about what the goals are. People would consider electric for several goals: environmental, there is future proofing, there's economy, which really is never going to be, and there's just a good feeling. There's an emotional reason to go electric, which I would think is 90% of the driver, if not 99% of the driver for electric boats at this point. Any solution that involves a diesel engine, you're still burning diesel, and all the energy is still coming from diesel. It's not really future proofing because your electric motor isn't big enough for the super battery that's coming. They're all a compromise to try and include some electric drive, and as I believe, and I'll probably be damned for saying it, there's no real reason to do it in a motor cruiser. Now, in a sailboat where it's an auxiliary, as I've said before, if all you need is to scoot off the dock or off the mooring, and then you have all day to regenerate either by regenerative off the propeller or wind energy or solar energy, and then at the end of the day you tootle into your mooring quietly on the electric motor, I love it. It's perfect. But to move 30,000 pounds day in, day out, I'm afraid we're still going to be using diesel one way or the other. So for me, might as well just connect it straight to the prop and go. Well, hello there, and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week here in the very empty wheelhouse. Well, let's get straight to it. The beer this week is again from the Souk Oceanside Brewery, and it's called Springboard. A springboard in this context is an actual board that they put in a tiny notch in a tree so they can stand on it as they're cutting down. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about this, and I'm becoming quite fond of this brewery, so we'll see what this tastes like. It's an IPA, of course. Is it a cloudy IPA? No. Well, wait a second now. Ooh, waves are just coming up here, getting a bit lumpy. I'm running out of space to put things. When you have to put your drill press up on the helm in your boat that you live aboard, you know you're running out of space. Okay, Springboard from Souk Oceanside Brewery. Oh, yes. Wow. Not like any IPA I've ever had. It's sharp. It's not a sour, but it's really good. The truth is, and many of you pointed out in previous beer drinkings, because they're not reviews, I actually don't know an awful lot about beer, but I know what I like, and this I like. Love the color too. Absolutely fantastic. Okay. Wow. I have quite a list. First off, pretty straightforward. Last week's t-shirt winner was Max Million 7007, and so Max Million 7007. I'll get a hold of you, or if you get a hold of me first, we'll make sure you get your t-shirt. Because I use this moment to thank people, I just have to thank all of you again through the engine repower campaign. I can hardly just keep going on about how incredible it's been, and it really is. And I suppose it's time to just get on with going on it. But I feel obliged, and not obliged. I'm very proud to be able to say that when all said and done, the campaign is closed down. It raised very, very close to $28,000, which just blows me away. Anyway, more on all of that soon over the next little while. Carry on. Also, a whole bunch of new patrons came in this period, and I'll run through them. Kenneth Helmer, Marty Bell, Jeffrey Kendall, Martin Summer Smith, Frank Spencer, Philippe Lepintre, hope I got that right, Guy Hill, Stephen Johnson, David Sturgis, Schroeder Hans Joachim, Tom Malko, and something which what I assume is Russian. I had to plug it into my iPhone's translator with all the funny backwards ends. And so Sergey Rystonov. That's what it said it sounds like. Thank you very much. I hope that's right. And Tom McDonough. Thank you all so very, very much for coming aboard as patrons. I'm very, very grateful. Dang, that is pretty darn good. Okay, I'm just going to jump right to the end because let's wrap this up. You need a word of the week. The word of the week is, well, we're committed now. So the word is committed, and feel free to use the word committed in the sense of, well, you should be committed. But anyway, that's up to you. See you next week.